somehow, if you end up being one of the prize students that they want to take, maybe because you lack diversity, then you'll get access to $21,000.
I went to public school my whole life, but Jasmine Crockett has some things to say about charter schools, private schools, public schools, and how much money is being sent to each student based on what school they get into or go to. And I think with private, you have to pay for it. In charter, it's like, you may pay for it, you may not. I don't know exactly how that works, but she has some things to say. And the response to the end of this video is actually funny. She goes on this whole tangent. She starts off with some nonsense, and the response is what makes the video. So I'm not even going to say what it is, just tune in. But before we get into that, I want to remind you guys to subscribe to RTM News because it ensures YouTube you're enjoying these videos, and in turn, they'll continually show up in your feed and they'll push it out to more people. I'm Titus. Let's get into this video.
Thank you so much. And I just want to echo what Congressman Bell was just saying. You know, there seems to be a theme. Republicans love to talk about how they are looking out for our children and they are trying to do what's best for them, yet we still haven't seen any adequate gun legislation to protect them while they're in these schools.
Yeah, so that's not even what this is about, but she had to throw that in there real quick. And before we move forward, I genuinely want to, I'm genuinely curious. I'm not even like trying to be a hater anymore, because I've talked about gun legislation and how I don't think that's going to be beneficial to anybody, because people that want to get guns are going to get guns. They're going to do terrible things with the guns that they want to do terrible things with, if they want to do terrible things. But if legal law-abiding citizens want to have guns to protect themselves from danger or government tyranny or whatever may come their way, that, you know, what the Second Amendment is for, what do they want to do? Like what genuinely? And maybe I just haven't paid attention enough, or like, is it they want to do like better screenings? I think that's what I've heard before. They want to make sure that people that are getting guns, like Americans, aren't like psycho. Like that's I don't necessarily disagree with that. You know, like obviously, like we don't want insane individuals to be able to have access to things where they can harm others. But like, what is this legislation that they're pushing and want? I feel like both sides just kind of say guns are bad. The other side, no, guns, we need them to protect ourselves. And the other side's like, the guns are killing people, they're the problem, so we got to take them away, and then vice versa. And so I just get so torn on what it is exactly that the Democrats want to be done. And is it that, because if it is like screenings for insanity, I don't think that should be something that the right is set about. So maybe we'll talk about that in the future, because I just genuinely am so curious about what it is exactly they want to do, because an insane person is going to get a gun and do something insane with it. They're going to. You can get guns illegally. You can build guns, I'm pretty sure. I don't know. Anyways, back to the video.
And now that we're dealing with their education, we're talking about $30 million being set aside. And right now we have approximately 1,400 students that take advantage of being able to kind of go into the private school situation for OSP. So that amounts to approximately $21,000 per student that is going to a private school. But if we look at the 52,000 students that are in the public school, then we're talking about approximately $192 per student. And then we start to talk about charter. Now, do y'all think charter is getting less or more? Since charter is somewhere between private and public, you guessed it right. When it comes to the charter students, then they are giving charter students $425 approximately per student. How is that equitable? I mean, I know that y'all hate the idea of the word diversity and you don't like equity and you don't like inclusion, but gosh darn it, we're talking about kids. And the idea that when someone goes to a public school, they can't be turned away. They have to take that student. But when it comes to the private schools, they can absolutely cherry pick and decide who it is that they want to take and who it is they don't want to take. And somehow, if you end up being one of the prize students that they want to take, maybe because you lack diversity, then you'll get access to $21,000.
You didn't have to do that, Mrs. Crockett or Miss Crockett. I don't know if she's married. I don't think people hate diversity. Well, some people definitely do, but I don't think the diversity is the issue. I think the concern with most people is that you were prioritizing being diverse over qualifications and meeting standards, which isn't necessarily accurate. I mean, the right has done a really bad job of kind of going with what they've heard other people say and not actually looking into what that means. Like, it's not necessarily, they're not dropping standards in every capacity ever to prioritize diversity. They just want more diversity, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like, I don't think people care, or you should care if they want more women or black people or whatever to be at their workplace. Like, that's fine. I guess there's studies that show that that's actually beneficial to a work environment. I don't know. I've heard these things, but I think that there needs to be a better communication on that thing. But I don't think people just care that if there's a black person that got into a charter school or a private school. I don't think so. Some obviously would. I'm not speaking for everyone, but I don't think the general public would care.
But if you are a student who is just as capable, if not more than capable, somehow you'll only have access to approximately $192 for your public education. The public education that the people at least have some accountability over, because they have the ability to elect who's going to sit on school boards and things like that, unlike at the private schools and unlike what we look at the charters. And for some reason, we complain about waste, fraud, and abuse, especially in this committee. And you're telling me that you believe that the American people are going to say, yes, send our tax dollars off to those private schools. The private schools that most likely this administration has some cronies that actually own, that they're going to profit from. There is a theme in this Congress. It is do everything that we can to line the pockets of the already rich and make sure that those that are struggling and need resources the most are going to be the ones that are sitting there holding the bag, being told to pull themselves up by the bootstraps, and when they don't, you blame them. I'll yield.
Gentlelady yields. Yeah. I was just saying, I went to public school, so I don't know what you're talking about on the private school stuff. But.
I did public too.
Okay. I thought you went to private school.
I went to both.
Oh, okay.
How about that?
All right. We didn't have private schools where I came from.
She was
And my mama
educated
paid
in
for
St.
it.
Louis, so let's hold that down.
Chair,
He said, out here whining and complaining about public school people and how they weren't capable of all this education. Da 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 da. If private school people, they get to dictate who's on the board and this and that, and it's lining rich people's pockets. Yada yada yada. She went to a private school, so you had the money for it. You're talking about yourself. You're the person that benefited. Which is not a bad thing. It's just funny that he said that. But when I want to know how much money is necessary, appropriate, needed for a child to have a good education, and let's figure out that number instead of worrying about how much some people get for whatever reason, how minimal someone else gets for another reason. What is needed, Because I do think if people are paying for their kids to go to a school, that makes sense. They're doing that intentionally so that they have a better education. So I don't really understand that discrepancy. Is like, yeah, it makes sense if you're paying for a kid to have a better education. But anyways, but that doesn't mean that people in public school shouldn't have good education either. I think we should definitely prioritize making sure these kids are competent, knowledgeable. That was just funny at the end because he was like, didn't you go to private school? She's like, I went to public school, but didn't you go to private school? Well, yeah, there too, but my mom paid for it. Politics. The worst thing in the world. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to comment down your thoughts below. Can't wait to see you on the next one. Peace.